Let's face it, your pentatonic licks just don't sound as good as the ones the pros are using. It's almost as they have these special additional notes they're adding to the pentascale, these enhanced pentatonic scales that just make everything they play sound great. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what makes those pentatonic scales sound so good, and I promise that your solos are going to sound so much better than they are now. Before I tell you what those things are, I need to warn you. See, there's a wrong way to approach this, and I don't want you to fall into the trap that I've fallen into a few years back when I was trying to implement these things into my playing. Now, this happened a few years back, about 12 years ago. I was comfortable with the pentatonic scale. I had been playing for quite a while. My friends and family told me I was a good player, but I knew deep inside that there was something missing. I wasn't really fulfilled, and I was actually kind of a hack. So I was playing the same thing over and over, and it just wasn't exciting anymore. And it got to a point where I almost gave up guitar altogether. Now, at the time, I was a huge fan of guys like Steve Lukather, Beck, Carlton. I still am. And those guys were all pentatonic players. So I knew that it wasn't the pentatonic scale necessarily that I was bored with. It was the way I was using it. So I did a little research, read some articles in magazines at the time. We didn't have the internet. And I read somewhere that most of these guys used what is called the Dorian scale. So I thought to myself, great, I just need to learn the Dorian scale, and that's just going to solve all my problems. My playing is going to be more like those guys and less like me, and that's really what I wanted. Of course, that didn't fix the problem at all. It actually made it quite worse, and that's the trap I want you to avoid. See, what I did was basically learn that new scale, that new thing, thinking is the key that was gonna unlock my creativity and make me sound much better. And I basically was trying to replace everything I was playing with this new thing, with this Dorian scale. I was trying to play Dorian everywhere. The result was really pathetic. I sounded like a complete beginner. I had absolutely no emotions in my playing, and I kind of sounded like a clumsy robot trying to play music. And this lasted for years. All right, so how can you avoid what I went through and make the most of these secret things you can add to your pentatonic skills? Well, don't focus on them. Now, this is what I mean. See, after a few years of trying to make that Dorian scale work for me, I decided to stop. It just clearly wasn't the path for me, and I went back to being a strict pentatonic player. I went back to my comfort zone, but at least I didn't sound like a complete beginner. And one day, a friend and I got together to jam. No agenda, just a couple friends, 2 guitars, a couple beers, just having fun. Now, at some point in the jam, I hit the wrong note. I was aiming for that 2nd string, 8th fret, and I accidentally played the fret just below. No big deal. Just a couple friends having fun, and I didn't think about it until a few days after when we listened to the recording of that jam. At 7 minutes, 48 seconds in, something completely shocking happened. Now, at that point of the recording, I was playing a lead, and there was a passage that sounded just like Steve Lukather. It was mind-blowing because I was playing it, and I didn't sound like Steve at all. It sounded so exciting. We had to rewind the tape several times because it sounded so good, and believe me, the rest of the jam wasn't so great, and that's when I remembered hitting that accidental note. It was totally unintentional as I was playing this, and I fixed it really quickly, yet that was the kind of thing I had been wanting to play my whole life. Now, it turns out that that accidental note was actually the major 6th, and I only knew that because I had to look it up. And after doing a bit more digging, I found that the major 6th is a characteristic note of that Dorian scale. I thought it was really weird because remember, I had been trying to make the Dorian scale work in my playing for so many years, and yet it never did until that time. So why? Well, it worked because I accidentally played Dorian. See, I wasn't trying to fit that scale into my solo. I wasn't trying to make it work. I was just jamming with my friend, having a good time, using the good old minor pentatonic scale I was so comfortable with. And when I accidentally hit that Dorian note, it sounded supernatural because I played it in the middle of a very comfortable musical moment for me. using that minor pentatonic scale. That is exactly how I want you to use the following concepts. Accidentally sneak them in to your regular minor pentatonic scale playing. Don't try too hard, just inject those things into your solos. All right, since we mentioned Dorian, let's just start with that one. Well, actually, let's not start with that one because of what I just told you. Instead, we're gonna start with the minor pentatonic scale. And here's how it's done. I'm basically going to replace the 7th of the minor pentatonic scale with the major 6th. So here I'm just playing like I usually do, pentatonic all the way. And I'm gonna try to slip in a few ideas using that enhanced pentatonic with that extra note. Now remember that the musical story here is really based on what I'm most comfortable with, the pentatonic scale. That's kind of our home base. All right, let's try something else. This time, we're gonna have a little bit of fun with the 3rd. Now, this is something that happens quite a bit in the blues. All we need to do is move the minor 3rd of our minor pentatonic scale to a major 3rd, which is found 1 fret above. And just like I did with the Dorian scale, I'm going to slip in those notes almost accidentally into my playing. Now here's a question for you. Do you like the sound of what you just heard? Now there's no right or wrong answer. I'm asking you because you always should ask yourself, do I like what I'm playing here? If the answer is no, there's no need to try to make it work. Just move on to something else. Remember that music is a language. It's your language. Okay, let's keep exploring, and this time we're gonna try something a little different. Instead of injecting a few new notes to the minor pentatonic scale, this time we're gonna inject a completely different scale. Now this is gonna add a little bit of tension to what you're playing, but with tension comes resolution, and that's always a good thing. Now there's a lot of different types of scales we can use here to inject into our pentatonic scale, but we're gonna talk about my favorite one, the whole tone scale. Now the whole tone scale is perfect for this kind of playing because it does sound really out there, really off, and it kind of forces you to accidentally use it and quickly go out of it. If you do it too long, you will know. Bottom line is that we are just injecting something, slipping into our minor pentatonic scale, which again is our home base, something different to add a little bit of excitement to our playing. All right, so check this out. This is the minor pentatonic scale we're gonna use, first position, and this is the whole tone scale we're going to use. We're gonna superimpose both together, and we'll do that on the first 3 strings to keep things a little bit easier. And this is what we have. It sounds pretty good, right? Now pay attention to what's going on because that's a pretty essential part of why this works so well. The reason this works so well is because of the rhythm I'm using. That is the real secret to make anything you play work. And I really do mean anything. Take this thing, for example. You might think that's a cool exotic scale, but that's just a weird shape I came up with that is kind of easy to play. Can we enhance our minor pentatonic scale with this? Absolutely, as long as the rhythm is right. Check this out. Sounds pretty cool, right? Now there is one more thing, and this is going to make all the things we talked about sound crazy good. Let me show you what that is right here.